Hello, good evening you all. Myself Himanshu Sharma on the behalf of Team Physio Inculcator. I would like to welcome you all in our today's session. Today we have a very special, very experienced resource person with us to talk on their field of expertise on the child with special needs. And today we have on the board very senior physical therapist and early interventionist Dr. Uma Sen Gupta ma'am. So we are really grateful and honored to have ma'am with us that in spite of having so much of busy schedule, ma'am has accepted our request to share their incredible knowledge and experience among us. So it is really a matter of pleasure for us. And anything good in our profession is just because of the great professionals like you that always motivates us being youngsters and young body physio. So we are really privileged and honored to have ma'am with us on the board. I would like to welcome you, ma'am, on the board for joining us and sparing your precious time with us, even though late in the night. And so today we have Dr. Uma Sen Gupta ma'am with us. Ma'am is a director of clinical services, Deep Shikha, clinical services at the Deep Shikha Ranchi. Ma'am is also a project director for the SPURS project of the Sense India International for the children with multiple disabilities. Ma'am is a well-known physical therapist, a well-experienced and renowned early interventionist working with the field of working with the childs with special needs since around more than 3 decades. And ma'am has been trained in community-based rehabilitation, working with child with special needs since around 1988. And ma'am headed various early intervention projects of the government of Jharkhand, Action Aid, Paul Hamlian Foundation, and ma'am has been invited as a resource person in the various training programs for the various health professionals regarding the early intervention in the child with a special need for the Anganwadi workers, ANMs, and child development project officers, and also the eyes doctors. Ma'am has been presented numerous papers in the national as well as international conferences of the person with the special needs or with a disability, especially the early intervention. And ma'am has also been invited as a resource person in the numerous international conferences. Ma'am is also a national head of Grievance Redressal Committee of Indian Association of the Physical Therapists, a largest association of the country, is a member of World Confederation of the Physical Therapy, and ma'am also had worked with more than 10,000 childs with special needs and awarded as a Jharkhand Physio Ratan Award by IAP Jharkhand in year 2017. So there are a lot of things about ma'am, and this is just a very brief introduction. And actually, the words are not enough to introduce you, ma'am, because you had a lot of experience, a lot of skills in working with a child with a special needs. So we are really much privileged to have you with us, and it is a matter of honor and it is a matter of pleasure for us that we are uh, so blessed to learn from you, the person with excellence and expertise on the special child with the special needs. So again, welcome you, ma'am, and welcome to you on the board, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, all. I feel honored that you have invited me and I can share my experience. This this lecture it's not a lecture, it's just sharing my experience. So I begin by seeking blessings from Almighty so that I have a pleasant and uninterrupted session. And I congratulate all the physios who are attending this program to choose this candid profession. It's a noble profession. We don't work with the movements only. We heal the person. We heal the person inside out. We even try to change the circumstances which will be suitable for the person. We are everywhere. We are needed and we can find our job everywhere. So I really congratulate all of you, and you are taking so much of pain to take this profession to newer heights. You are eager to learn. You are eager to gather knowledge. It's excellent. As for me, I am Uma Sen Gupta and I am from Ranchi, Jharkhand. Well, Ranchi, you all must be knowing, you know by the name of MS Dhoni. He belongs to Ranchi. You can say this is the uh, beautiful state, tribal state, but an excellent place to come and visit. And the people here are also very down to earth, and I have had a lot of good experience working in Ranchi. So let's begin with the session today and hope I'll be able to do justice and quench your thirst. Okay, let's begin then. So my topic is clinical science to identify children with special needs. It is actually the ministries, the health ministries guidelines. What happens is that the biggest and the most loved feeling on this earth is the happiness, biggest happiness is to hold your own child in your arms. And as long as humanity exists, we will have children. And we would always love to have children who are absolutely normal. But at times it happens that children are something special. So the first slide says developmental difficulties due to prenatal, natal, and postnatal causes. Well, the list is so long, so I have purposely not mentioned the prenatal causes. All of us know that a woman or a girl who is too young or an elderly woman both might have difficulties in pregnancy. Apart from that, women who are prone to intoxications, cigarettes, alcohol, or those who suffer from high blood pressure, hypothyroidism, or blood sugar problem, anything that contributes to the development, I mean, it affects the development of the fetus in the womb, will come in the prenatal causes. And the most important amongst them, which I feel, is the mental tension. I'm not talking about mental illness. It is mental tension. Whenever a young girl learns that she has conceived, she is going to be a mother, she is happy, at the same time she is confused. So it's the society's responsibility to take full care of her nutrition, full support to her mental status, so that she can actually become a healthy mother. What happens is, if you are tensed, you tend to eat less, you deprive yourself, you deprive your fetus, the womb, the child in the womb. So there starts the problem. So this is one of the causes. I mean, this is also it can be attributed to one of the causes, because nowadays both the all women, mostly they are working. So that this is one thing which is very important, that it is a natural process. It has to be taken very sportingly, and so that we can get a healthy child. Okay, now natal causes. Natal causes are those which occur at the time of birth. So the first point is hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. Now what is hypoxia? We all know, lack of oxygen in the blood. And ischemia, of course, when there is less of blood flow. Now, these two factors, when there is hypoxia, lack of oxygen, and there's ischemia, so what will happen is that the brain will not receive enough oxygen immediately after birth, and it will leave permanent changes in the brain. And this hypoxia also, that's those changes then almost become they cannot be reversed. Then comes neonatal jaundice. I think all of us know that children, they do have physiological jaundice, right, from birth till 3 to 4 days, and it fades off. We sometimes put them on sunshine, sun rays, and it's a natural process. But if the bilirubin level increases beyond 30 mg, then it gives a permanent damage to the brain, and that leads to that is called kernicterus. So that is a very important factor that we should take care. If there is jaundice, we don't need neglect. We have to take the child to the doctor and immediately give him attention so that we can avoid things like kernicterus. Prematurity, of course, all of us know children born before 37 weeks of gestation, they have to fight with this normal atmosphere and surrounding with their less developed, not fully matured system. So the more the prematurity, the more will be the difficulty to thrive. So then premature children, they need to be kept in close watch. They have to be taken care of very sincerely so that they can become normal individuals. Torch infection, toxoplasmosis, others includes thalassemia, sickle cell anemia. R is for rubella, C is cytomegalovirus, H is herpes simplex, and at the same time, nowadays we find an S behind torch, that is for syphilis. Now, these infections will affect the mother, it will affect the condition of the body, and that will hamper the growth of the child. I would like to add one more thing which I haven't put it down here. Allergic reactions of the mother. Supposing she suffers from allergies, please, it's my sincere advice, do not take any anti-allergic tablets. Antihistaminics are not for pregnant women. They should visit their doctor, take proper advice. Otherwise, it's harmful for the child. Unskilled delivery, obviously, the time since when I am working in this part of the state, most of the deliveries were home delivery, because this is more of a rural part, tribal belt. People have their own traditional methods, traditional beliefs. They don't want to they didn't want to. Nowadays, the scene is different. So they didn't want to go to the hospital. They wouldn't even take care of a pregnant woman till she complained of labor pain. If it was post-dated, they said, okay, you don't have the pain, why would you go to the hospital? So you can imagine the plight of the mother. So those things have changed now. It's absolutely, scene is different. But then you get unskilled delivery. And after that, if the child is in distress, it's so difficult for the parents to take the child to the hospital and give him the best quality treatment. It was a very dark scenario at that time, which is changing over time. Now, next is genetic and chromosomal disorders. All of us, I'll come to chromosomal first. All of us must be knowing and have seen children with Down syndrome or Mongolism. Nice, roundish face, plumpish children, lovable. You can cuddle them like anything. and they are good imitators. They can do, but they have a chromosomal disorder. That's 21st trisomy, the 21st chromosome. It replicates and it becomes triple. But that then those children, they with training, they are doing so good. They are good dancers. They can even run, to the extent they can even run their own semi-skilled work, and they can be good productive members of the society. Genetic, you all know, you have heard about genetic conditions like myopathy, thalassemia, and all that, sickle cell anemia, all this comes there. Congenital anomaly, to if you ask me to name some of them, I'll take the name of spina bifida first. I don't know how many of you have seen children with spina bifida, but that's a congenital anomaly where the vertebral column, the spine at particular places, it fails to join, and there's a herniation, and the whole mass comes out, it herniates, it's surgically corrected, but the child has permanent damages to carry over for the lifetime. There's bladder bowel incontinence, there's loss of lack of sensation in the lower limbs, whatnot. It's a very difficult condition. Apart from that, you have seen CTEV, the congenital, the club foot, I think, and congenital absence of limbs. All these are there. Cleft palate and cleft lip, all of you have must have seen, but then these are conditions which congenitally occur. Let me come to cerebral palsy first. Cerebral palsy is a condition where there is permanent and irreparable brain damage. How does it occur? Again, it is because of the hypoxia. And this hypoxia can result from different circumstances. Like if the child has cord around neck, if the child has become aspirated at meconium aspiration at birth, or even if the child has had any other say a very difficult born out of a very difficult labor. So there is there's anoxia, this is asphyxiation for so long. So all this leads to cerebral palsy, and which is mainly of three types: spastic, athetoid, and ataxic. Let me come to autism next. This autism is a condition where the children nowadays, you'll hear of this term. I'll tell you, 7 to 10 years ago, I had not seen so many children with autism. What is this I'm facing now? And I'm really dreading this situation, because children are all normal, but they are lost within themselves. They are always, they can hear, but they will not pay attention. They usually don't try to speak. And this leads to, this is a behavioral disorder, behavioral problem. Coming to deaf blindness is a condition where the child is unable to hear, at the same time he is unable to see. So you can just imagine the plight of the caregivers, how they handle such a child. But right now, that Sparsh project which Dr. Himanshu talked to you about, I'm working with children with deaf blindness. The only source of making them understand is their palm and the touch, and they are also working. So now the two conditions left here are intellectual disability and learning disability. Intellectual disability, to be more specific, is a condition where the child's brain is not matured at par with his chronological age. The brain is not matured enough, so he will not be able to understand. He will not be able to grasp. But learning disability is different. Learning disability is, there's a specific delay in learning. And what is happening is that it's not always that the child is not able to grasp. Maybe the circumstances are not fair enough. Maybe he is not having a very good vision, which is overlooked. We have not diagnosed that. He is not able to see anything from the blackboard or a whiteboard, whatever. He is not able to, his vision is not proper. So he'll not have interest in learning. And there comes this learning disability, and there are other factors. This is some of the general terms which I thought I should tell you. And in the coming back to congenital, you must have heard about head size, which is small, that's microcephaly. Sometimes you get macrocephaly. All these conditions, they lead to the developmental difficulty. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I hope this much was good. And now, see, this slide tells you the Persons with Disability, Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. This I have purposely put here. Excuse me for that typing error. It's enlisted, it's not unlisted. Sorry for that. It's enlisted 21 types of disability. What has, you all must have heard that there was a PWD Act of 1995 where there was only 7 conditions which were enlisted in that. But it was found that these conditions, I'm not going to read out the 21 name, I think you will get it. So these conditions are the ones which need special care. They need a disability certification, fight for their rights, a place in society. They should be included in the voting list. All that, for that, this revised form, Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, has enlisted 21 types of disability. Next one, please. Yes. All of you, I think you can see the wonderful presentation there. And here, from here, you will find out that what is the difference between a developmentally delayed child and a child with normal developmental milestone. Now, how do we identify? As physios, we have a very important role in the team of professionals who work with children with disabilities. We work, we have a screening schedule. What is a screening schedule? It's a, you can say it's a schedule which has a number of items right from birth of the child, or some items even before the birth of the child. We ask the mother at birth what has happened, that is the birth history. And I'll share my experience with this. What has happened, we made a screening schedule at Deep Shikha. This is an NGO which works for children with disabilities and all types of disabilities. So we thought that we will catch them as early as possible. So how did we do it? We made a screening schedule, and here hospitals have a particular day for immunization every month. At that time, there was a small hospital, a missionary hospital. We talked to them and they allowed us. What I did was, I would go on that particular day of every month, and whoever came for immunization, I started that screening schedule, applied that screening schedule on the child. And just think how it was effective. Every month the child would come. So from the first month till 5 months, I wouldn't miss that child. So if the child was growing well, fine. If there were any changes, the mother would tell us, or I could also find out, and that child would be labeled as a special child. And or we would do other tests also, not only by the screening schedule, but that gives you, it helps you to like identify. That's the screening schedule. You screen out the child. And birth history, as I told you, cord around neck, prematurity, and these do attribute to the cause. Delayed birth cry. As I have mentioned earlier also, delayed birth cry is very, very important factor, because as soon as the child is into this world, it has to cry. And that's where the lungs get inflated and the respiratory system starts working, and it's this oxygen which is circulated, the blood circulation starts, and all the child's parameters start functioning. So therefore, the child should not get delayed birth cry. Let me tell you one more thing here, that if a child has a feeble birth cry and did not cry for 3-4 hours, and then there is an incessant cry, the cry is so sharp and you cannot console, inconsolable cry, please, the alarm should ring that the child has suffered from seizure disorder. There has been some epileptic changes in the brain. That is why the child is crying like that, because of the difficulty. Pneumonia. Pneumonia, again, there can be aspiration can lead to pneumonia, whatever be the fact. But for young mothers, my suggestion here is, do not feed the child in lying position. It has to be a propped up head, so that there is less chances of aspiration leading to pneumonia. Hypoglycemia, we all know that if there is less of sugar, there is this blood in the blood, the sugar level has to be there. So glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase, if it is deficiency, then it might lead to kernicterus. And then comes that neonatal jaundice, which I have earlier also told you. And you see that these two children, the child, the first picture is the normal developmental milestone. So his head along with his trunk when he is being pulled. This is called traction reaction. I'll show you a slide on this later on. And the other one is not able to, the head lags behind. There's no maturity with the head. Okay, next slide, please. Now, this is the government of India has prepared a mother and child protection booklet that's called MCP card. I have taken these slides from there because it's all over India in different languages, and it is for the ANMs, for the mother also to know where the red flags are. So what I'm trying to explain through these slides is that up to 3 months, what are the signs which we look for when the child is not responding the way it should. So we have to go back. Dr. Himanshu, we have to go back 0 to 3 months. Yes, that's exactly. No, not this one, the next one. Thank you. Can I see it a little bigger, please? Is it full screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's done. So at 3 months, see on the left hand side it's written at 3 months. So what do we look for? The child should give a social smile at 1.5 months. Now at 3 months also, the father is trying to talk to the child, actually correspond with him, but the child is showing no reaction. Then where there is no eye contact, the child is not making any eye contact with mother, and eye contact also comes, the social smile will only come when there is eye contact, otherwise how will the child smile? And you see this squint, this squint again is a sign of brain damage. So this squint, why does it occur? The muscles of the eyes, they have to have a synchronized and coordinated movement. If there is brain damage, there will be difficulty in coordinating the eyeballs, and you will see this type of a squint. Then these are the screening tests. the bell is being rung from behind the child. If you allow the child to see the play object or a toy, then the child might turn the head with the toy, and you might feel that it's responding to sound. But what we do, we take the object or the toy beyond the child's visual range and try to ring that bell or the toy and see whether the child is responding. Now the next picture is of a typical opisthotonus, which is, you see that the child is bearing weight on the back of the head and the heel. The back is arched. It's absolutely in spasm. So this is one thing which is very difficult to handle. The child tends to fall off from the lap. And the next picture is of a fist, which is typical in brain damage. The thumb is always inside. It does not come out in fisting. In extension or flexion, the thumb will take its position there. Next slide, please. So those were the signs at 3 months which should not be there. They should be integrated. They should. So if we find those gaps, we find the lag, we have to, I think we need to go one slide back. 4 to 6 months. Yes, thank you. So at 6 months now, your child is not holding head. Child is supposed to sit independently. There is still head lag. And that head lag has to come, it has to be okay by 3 months. At 6 months also it's not there. See the flexion, the holding the child, but it's not able to pull up its neck and the head. There is no reaching out for the toy. You see that the child is not able to bring his hand to midline. That is, it's not that he is not interested, but he is not able to bring the hands to midline. Then when the mother is making, see the why this position is very nice, because an eye-to-eye contact with mother. And mother is trying to coax the child to speak, but the child does not respond. The next slide is of visual tracking. We call it visual tracking. You can see the side arrows. They are, if you take the ball in that direction or even from right to left, the child is not responding. On the other hand, in the last slide, you see the child is in prone lying, but not able to pick up his head to see the mobile or the hanging toy. So these signs at this age, if they are not there, that means that with the chronological age, the developmental age of the child is not at par. There is a developmental delay. Next slide, please. And at 9 months, so we talked about 4 to 6 months, now 7 to 9 months. So this first picture here is that the child is not able to roll. You see that the child is in a very asymmetrical position. Head is turned to one side. There's extension of both upper and lower extremity on the same side as the head is turned to, and flexion on the other side. So I'll come to the slide later on and I'll explain why this is like this. And when the child is made to sit, see the child is not able to touch his knees to the floor. He is keeping it raised because there is spasticity, there is tightness in this condition. And you come to the next picture. Here the condition is different. Here it is more of a mental, intellectual disability, and the child is not responding. In the next picture, you see that the child is looking at the mirror, but not making any jargon speech, as if children usually what they try to do, try to beat that image. They're thinking that that's another child. So this reaction is not there, not even speaking anything. And the last picture is that the when you bring objects to the close to the child, he doesn't respond. So these, you know what, they are the signs which keeps you informed, which you should look for as a physiotherapist. These are the signs which speak of developmental delay. Next slide, please. So I purposely for this talk, I have kept it till 1 year, because that's the most crucial time of development. And by 1 year, the child has to start, I mean, it usually starts walking. But again, here we are looking for those signs which is preventing the child from performing normal activities. Now here you see that there is the grasp is not developed. By this time in 10 to 12 months, there should be voluntary grasp and release, which is not being possible. So that means that the child is not able to pick up things to eat, or even take things to mouth, you know, edibles, or children explore by mouth only. They put everything to their mouth, and then the child is not able to take the hand till mouth. And next is that they don't stretch their hands to be picked up. Maybe you must have heard about a condition called diplegia, where the lower limbs work better and the upper limbs work less. So that can be one of the types of paralysis. So the child is not able to use the hands much. Again, now the father, initially we saw in the previous slides. Could we go back? Yeah, initially we saw in the previous slides, the child was coaxed or tried to come out with jargon speech. Now the father is calling by name, but he is not responding. The toy which was shown, come to the next picture. The toy which was shown to the child is not interested. It's hidden, but it's not interested. And the mother is trying to focus onto the child's face, but child is not responding. So next slide, please. Now we come to, as physiotherapists, what is important. We come to reflexes. So now you see two children walking, one coming towards you and the one going away. See their gait. You see the pelvis, how they are bearing weight on their foot. These are the things which we look for when we get children in our clinic or anywhere in community too. So what is the stimulus? It's the actions in response to stimuli that are present in newborn infants. They are born with certain of intelligence, or you can call them the stimulus which is inborn, because they have to thrive in this world. And they are unconditioned reflexes. They are not learned, they are not taught, they are developed, or they are not even developed through experience. They will come from within. The child is born with those reflexes. And if those reflexes are not proper, then there is difficulty in different areas. Normally, developing neonates or infants are expected to respond to specific stimuli with a specific predictable behavior or action. But at times what happens, they are very, they're not doing it at par with age. So next is, I hope I'm not too all interested. You're finding it good? Okay. So Now there are certain reflexes which I'll go in detail, and certain I'll see. This is the first reflex which is very important, is Moro's reflex. You release the child suddenly, it will outstretch its hands, and then it will come back to midline. This comes at 3 months, and it it disappears. It's at birth till 3 months it should disappear. Because why will it disappear? Because the child will start holding head, so it will disappear. Next slide. See what happens if what is the abnormality. If the Moro's is not well elicited, or it is persisting, then we call them primitive reflexes. If they are present beyond time, then we call them primitive reflexes. Then this is depressed or absent. So what happens, there is depression of the central nervous system. If there is an asymmetrical response, we might suspect fracture clavicle, Orb's palsy, or hemiparesis. If there is an exaggerated response, that means the child is continuously, spreading out and coming back. That is kernicterus. Next, please. There's another error in this slide. Please, startle reflex is a variant of Moro's reflex. Certainly, if the child has learned to develop head control late, there will be some amount of startle reflex. A little bit of change in position, the child will startle. But that is not a Moro's, that is startle reflex. And palmar grasp. All of us have experienced that when we touch the child, a newborn baby, by the side of the palm, there's an outstretched hand, and we press the palm, and the child clings onto the palm, not allowing to leave. And if this is not there, that means, or it is present in one hand, not in the other, that means we can think that there is some anomaly there. And it is, if this reflex is not integrated and there is the palmar grasp remains, then we will find that remember in the first 3 month slide I had shown that the thumb is inside and the fingers are on top. That will be the condition. Okay, next. Now comes, you remember seeing this picture also. Now this has been, you can say, it has been made live for you. This is what happens, that if the child has his head, this is tonic neck reflex. We have got two types, asymmetric tonic neck reflex, this is asymmetric. And asymmetric tonic neck reflexes, the neck, if you turn towards one side, right or left, the head to the side which is turned, there will be extension in the upper and lower extremities and flexion on the other side. Now this prevents the child from rolling over, because both sides the muscle tone is not the same. The child cannot roll over, and this is persistent. If it is persistent more than 3 months, then you get spastic C. Next. This is also very important. This is symmetric tonic neck reflex. When you extend the child's head, there is extension of the upper extremities and flexion of the lower extremities. It should not be more than 6 months. It should not persist, because by this time your child will start commando crawling, that is creeping, with the whole breast, the child will pull itself forward. So that it should be integrated by 6 months. And there are two parts of it. Either you extend, then there is extension in the upper extremity, or you flex the head, then there is flexion in the upper extremity and extension in the lower extremity. Next. Now this is very important. This, see, a newborn, you are holding in ventral suspension and you run the finger down the paravertebral. So the child is, see, it's turning towards the stimulated side. And it should, because this has a feeling of this has the feeling of that alternate movements, initiation of alternate movements of the body. Next. Sorry. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, this is for this usually we don't do because we don't get children this small. But well, this is the child initially. If you stimulate the child, there's an hyperextension and then it starts crying. Next. So you saw that very first slide, you saw there was this traction response. I told you I'd show you later. This is the one, that how the head lags behind. You give a traction, trying to pull the child. Next. Next one, please. These two, the rooting reflex and the next one, which I'll be showing, these two are the survival reflex, because now the child is separated from the mother, so it has to find its food. And these two reflexes, if they are well elicited, then we know that the child has normal brain development, maturity at birth. And the child is actually, by stimulation, what it's trying to do, it's trying to find the nipple. It wants food. So this is what is a normal reaction to this reflex. Next. This is the sucking reflex. So first is the rooting. Unless the child can root its mouth around the nipple, the child will not be able to suck. Now, if the child has to go to the NICU after birth, these two reflexes will not develop normally. Lactating mothers at times, if there's long duration of hospitalization, they just don't produce milk anymore. It's such a pathetic condition. And we face these things in our day-to-day work. Next. Lando's reflex. We do this on a gymming ball. All of you must have done with your kids or must have seen. We do it to enhance the head extension of the spine, and this way so that the child now learns to become vertically, the spine develops properly, right? Next. And if it is not there, the head lags, then there will be something like mental subnormality or cerebral palsy. Next. This is one reaction. Most of the Colles fracture occurs because of this, because this persists lifelong. All of us, when we fall, or tend to fall, we fall on our hand. That's the parachute reaction, and it persists. Okay. And these, of course, these are the neonatal. We can skip these. Let's move on. Okay, we can skip this too. But at this also we can, because I think people might get bored. So now the conclusion to the reflexes, why it is important. Understanding the human development as a whole, application for overall assessment of the baby, recognition of possible neurodevelopmental damage in prenatal and perinatal period, and establishment of prognosis for future. This is what is very important. If we intervene at this point, we can alter the course of development. The prognosis can be altered because of the neural plasticity. All of us as you know what is neural plasticity. And if we work particular area, we can change the it predicts the change. Next. you can appreciate the two pictures, how the child with normal development gets up to standing and how the other one is lagging behind. All of us know this. Why I have put this, a little essence of what is how management should be. It's a big topic, so I thought I'll just coin it down to the points only. It's normal developmental milestone. So we have earlier studied that head holding and rolling, there is a gap of almost 2 to 3 months. What I do is I use this gap to develop the cognitive skills, to develop the ADL skills, to develop socialization, language, because the next developmental milestone will appear in the next 2 3 months. So we keep on working, but ask the parents not to hurry, because your child is 2 years old and it has learned to hold head just 1 month ago. You want the child to walk. It cannot be. It cannot be. It has to go through these stages. The child has to go through these stages. Next slide, please. What are the principles of therapy as physiotherapists? We have to have a holistic approach. We cannot say, okay, I'm concerned with movement, so I'll tie up your child and make him stand and make him move with some support and I've done my job. No, I have to be holistic in my approach. I have to take into consideration the abilities of the child, overlooking the disabilities. I have to work on the abilities to improve the abilities more, so that there can be some compensation and the child is able to do normal work with some support system, of course, if required. And then nutrition and growth monitoring, it is very important, because unless the child is healthy from within, I have seen children who are 4 years old, mother is still giving them feeding bottles because she cannot make child chew. It's a special child, she cannot make the child chew, so she is giving feeding bottles. It's all water and very little of the solute. So that is very important, that the weight and nutrition of the child. Focus on the developmental age, and sorry, there is a mistake here, not the chronological age. Whatever has the child has achieved, focus on that. Don't think my child is 4 years old, he should perform. Hygiene is very important. We have lots of cases of secondary infections due to poor hygiene. And Jharkhand, I have had to rack my brain like anything to teach them that passing urine is also equally, if you don't take care, it is equally bad like stool. They think that urine is just water. They would dry up the plants without even washing them. This was the scenario at that time. Now everyone is on diapers. So this is the change which I have seen with my own eyes. Positioning, midline, see the child in this. The therapist has tried his level best to bring the child in midline. Okay, next slide. These are the areas of intervention: visual, cognitive development, communication, activities of daily living, gross motor, and socialization. Remember, your child understands everything. If the mother is unhappy, I've seen children, trying to pull up their hands and to wipe the mother's tears. This is such a scene, I tell you. Children, they have intelligence. They don't like it when people discuss about their disabilities. And please don't allow others to discuss about your child. Okay, next. Okay, we come to the end and see. So this little one has come to say hello to you, all of you. So I hope I could give you the essence of what is early intervention. And if you have any questions, please do ask me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for such a great deliberation on a much needed topic. And it was really a wonderful presentation, wonderful deliberation on the topic. And we were actually enjoying the learning, and it was like a hands-on session. And the selection of picture is also the great. So really, ma'am, it was an awesome session. And with your kind permission, I would like to request the participant, if anybody has any query, they can definitely ask and by writing in the chat box.
Yeah, someone has asked for kernicterus. Kernicterus is a condition where I told you that jaundice is okay. It had happened. Jaundice is physiological. Jaundice is common. But if that becomes pathological due to some reason, like one of the most common causes is hypoglycemia, that leads to kernicterus. And what will happen? The bilirubin count will go so high that the child will suffer permanent brain damage. And that leads to athetoid cerebral palsy. The basal ganglia part of the brain is damaged, which will lead to the consequences of muscular imbalance, tone problem, the speech problem. Child might have hearing loss also. Most of the children who have had high jaundice or kernicterus, you must have heard about exchange transfusion. They do get their blood exchanged because the bilirubin is so high and that blood becomes toxic for them. So they need to get exchange. I think this much is enough.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Great deliberation, and you have explained well enough about the query. Even I can see the any more questions. Yes, it. So we are receiving a great feedback in the chat box, ma'am, and everyone is appreciating a great presentation and great deliberation by you. And we are really privileged that even though having a lot of experience since last 3 decades, you are working with the people, the child with the special needs. And from that era, now in the today's era, you are continue and taking the classes online. So itself, it is a great thing, and it shows your dedication towards the profession. So we are really blessed to have the professionals like you that they can make us proud and they can feel us proud in the community as a physiotherapist. Really, so much grateful to you, ma'am.
Oh, thank you so much, all the whole team of physio inculcators. And it's your effort. You all have actually all totally guided me. Otherwise, sitting in one corner of the country and talking and interacting with so many of you, it's my pleasure to be with you. And thank you all for giving me a patient hearing. Wonderful session. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot, ma'am. There is one question that can you provide your mail ID for any further queries?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
Should I give it to you? I'll give it on your WhatsApp and then you can share.
Okay, definitely.
Okay, Dr. Himanshu?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good night,
Okay.
everyone.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thanks. Good night.
Okay, bye.